Good morning, everyone. Happy World Wetlands Day. This is Amy Lecciones of the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands, and I will be your host and facilitator for today. On the occasion of the signing of the Convention on Wetlands, also known as the Ramsar Convention, in 1971 in the Iranian city of Ramsar in the shores of Caspian Sea, World Wetlands Day is being celebrated every 2nd of February each year since 1977. The Ramsar Convention is the only treaty focused on a single ecosystem, and that is wetlands. The Ramsar Convention is celebrating a milestone of 50 years this year, so it is fitting that events are planned to be held throughout the year. There was a kick-off event for this year-long celebration hosted by the DENR's Biodiversity Management Bureau last Tuesday, and today we will be doing our small part by conducting this event. Today we will have a conversation on the importance of securing water for people, ecosystems, and biodiversity, and the role of wetlands in all this. Joining us today through live streaming on FB, YouTube, and on SCPW website are a host of people interested and committed to wetland conservation. To welcome everyone, may I call on the President of the SCPW, Mr. Celestino B. Ulep.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure for the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands, or SCPW, to welcome you all to this online event to celebrate World Wetlands Day 2021. Since World Wetlands Day in 1977, various institutions and organizations acted on advocating the conservation of Philippine wetlands, raising awareness of the public about the value and significance of wetlands through various activities like today. In line with this year's celebration for World Wetlands Day and highlighting the theme Wetlands and Water, the Society planned this event dubbed as Water for People, Ecosystems and Biodiversity through this live streaming on various social media platforms in compliance with existing health protocols. This event is designed to instill awareness among various users of water on the connection between water, wetlands, and life. Water is essential to life, and in order that we could have enough water for people and nature, wetland destruction should stop and efforts in restoring wetlands should be pursued. Restoring wetlands is also at the heart of the UN Decade for Ecosystems Restoration, which begins this year. This event will also feature the launching of the video making contest of the SCPW for high school students. Reaching out and engaging the youth in this kind of environmental conservation activity will not only lead to direct impact on their change of behavior and towards the planet, but will also create influence towards their family, their peer, and community. I wish everyone a productive session, and in behalf of the Society, I would also like to thank everybody for joining this event, including our partners and guests, the Philippine Water Partnership, the DNR, through the Ecosystems Research and Development Bureau, and Biodiversity Management Bureau, the resource persons from Maynilad Water Services and the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, Society for Philippine Wetland Conservation members and staff, teachers and students, especially our youth network in Laguna de Bay who are watching our event. We are also honored today to have with us our keynote speaker, the Honorable Senator Cynthia A. Villar. Enjoy and happy World Wetlands Day.
Thank you, Sir Celis. Over the years, the SCPW has established partnerships with like-minded local as well as regional and international organizations that advocate for water, ecosystems, and biodiversity conservation. Some are here with us today to join in the celebration and contribute to the conversation on wetlands, water, and life. We will now hear from some of them, starting with the chairperson of the Philippine Water Partnership, which is the main partner of SCPW in this event. The chairperson of the Philippine Water Partnership, or PWP, is also the Corporate Affairs Director of Cargill Philippines Incorporated, providing strategic leadership in the company's corporate communications, government relations, corporate responsibility, sustainable development, and branding practice areas. Chris worked with Manila Water Company Incorporated, the East Zone water concessionaire of the Metropolitan Water Works and Sewerage System, where he rose the ranks to eventually become the group head for corporate regulatory affairs. Because of his work in the local water space, Chris has maintained a personal advocacy on water sustainability and governance. He continues to be involved in various policy dialogues geared towards improving the management of water resources in the country. He also serves as the vice chairman of the Movement for Water Security, a local private sector led movement advocating for the sustainable management and development of the country's water resources. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Christopher Ilagan.
Thank you very much, Abby. Good morning and happy World Wetlands Day to everyone on the call. It is my honor and privilege to address you all today. Last February 2, it was 50 years since the landmark Ramsar Convention was signed, which committed its 170 signatories, including our beloved Philippines, to adopt a framework for the conservation and use of wetlands and its resources. Unfortunately, despite this long history, the awareness of wetlands and the role it plays in our society and economy remains low. Wetlands are often an underappreciated component of our natural environment, taken for granted and often misunderstood. To set the record straight, we define wetlands per Article 1.1 of the Ramsar Convention as areas of marsh, fen, peatland, or water, whether natural or artificial, permanent or temporary, with water that is static or flowing, fresh, brackish, or salt, including areas of marine water, the depth of which at low tide does not exceed 6 meters. At a first hearing of this definition, it's quite easy to understand why perhaps the notion of wetlands is not well understood. Besides being a definition so broad and specific at the same time, the definition doesn't provide an element of what that means from the perspective of the reader or listener. But let's get an idea of how you and I are impacted by wetlands, as taken from the Ramsar fact sheet issued for this year's celebration. Wetlands store and clean water. Wetlands hold and provide most of our fresh water. They naturally filter pollutants, leaving water where we can safely drink. Number two, they keep us fed. Growing food production sector, while inland fisheries alone provide 12 million tons of fish in 2018. Rice paddies feed 3.5 billion people annually. Number three, it underpins our global economy. Wetlands, the most valuable ecosystem, provide services worth $47 trillion a year globally. More than 1 billion people rely on wetlands for income. Number four, they provide nature a home. 40% of the world's species live and breed in wetlands. Annually, about 200 new fish species are discovered in freshwater wetlands. Coral reefs are home to 25% of all species. Finally, wetlands keep us safe. Wetlands provide protection from floods and storms, with each acre of wetland absorbing up to 1.5 million gallons of floodwater. Wetlands also help regulate the climate. Peatlands store twice as much carbon as forests, with salt marshes, mangroves, and seagrass beds also holding vast amounts of carbon. water, food, shelter, economy, environment, life. Now it's clear the role that wetlands plays in our society and personal lives. Little background on the organization I represent, the Philippine Water Partnership, or PWP. PWP is the global water partnership which promotes integrated water resources management, both as a process and a win-win approach. PWP was launched on World Water Day, March 22, 2002, as a non-profit entity under Philippine laws and counts national government agencies, government-owned and controlled corporations, local government units, NGOs, and private companies as members. For those not fully aware of what Integrated Resources Management, or IWRM, is, IWRM is an approach which is a multi-sectoral and participatory and ensures a holistic view on water resources proper management across different uses, from ridge to reef, striking the balance between economy, society, politics, and the environment. And why is this important? Water is life. Without it, we are undone. Especially during this time of COVID, water's importance has come to the fore, especially in relation to sanitation and hygiene. Despite being quite blessed with the resource in the country, we find ourselves annually dealing with floods and droughts, with loss of life and property, further exacerbated by climate change in more recent decades. IWRM is among the solutions providing soft infrastructure. These are management instruments enabling environment and institutional roles needed to deal with these annual disasters and occurrences. Now, bringing this back to wetlands, you can see that in the water cycle alone, wetlands is a critical node of the entire water chain. Furthermore, because of the multiple services that wetlands offer, it is a natural area for IWRM to be applied. All the competing uses need to be managed in a way that balances human and economic development with environmental preservation and ecosystem conservation. That is our shared intersection with all you wetland warriors here today. Our mission is shared, and we must build our coalition that we do not squander this rare and valuable resource, our wetlands. At this point, I'd like to congratulate the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands on leading the charge on protecting our wetlands. SCPW has really been the frontliner in this advocacy over the years, and it is quite apt that during this year's World Wetlands Day, last Feb 2, we saw the Sasmuan Pampanga Coastal Wetland listed as a wetland of international importance, as it supports vulnerable, endangered, or critically endangered species or threatened ecological communities, and among other things, regularly supports 20,000 or more water birds. It's apt because Sasmuan Pampanga Coastal Wetland, or SPCW in short, is a shuffling of the Society's own acronym, SCPW. With this year's global wetlands and water theme, and this session's topic, water for people, ecosystems, and biodiversity. PWP is a proud partner of SCPW in advocating for water security, especially during this time of climate change, which seasonally destroys the balance between supply and demand more acutely each passing year. By sharing more stories on the link between water security and wetlands, hopefully we move our fellow countrymen towards the path of sustainable development. The videos to be produced for the video making contest to be launched today could play a big role in our shared advocacy. In closing, congratulations to SCPW for this celebration and the continued fight to conserve our wetlands. Together, we can work towards a better, water secure, and sustainable future. I call on all wetland water warriors here today to continue the good fight. Thank you again.
Thank you, Chris. And it's really good to have you here. So the SCPW had been working with ERDB, the Ecosystems Research and Development Bureau, on wetland-related initiatives, particularly in our Wetlands BioBlitz and in restoration activities in the Candabo wetlands. Our next Our next partner who will be giving his message today is Dr. Henry A. Adornado, Director of Ecosystems Research and Development Bureau.
To Honorable Senator Cynthia A. Villar, Chair of Senate Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, to Architect Celestino B. Ulip, President of Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands, to Mr. Christopher Ilagan, Chair of Philippine Water Partnership, and to distinguished resource persons, Engineer Francisco Arellano, Consultant of Maynilad Water Services, and Dr. Teresa Mondita Lim, the Executive Director of ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. To all participants who are joining here in this event, a pleasant good morning. First, I would like to commend the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands and its partner agencies for conducting this significant event. This year's theme for the World Wetlands Day is Water, Wetlands and Life, Inseparable. This is an interesting one. It shows how we are bound and connected to wetlands, as these wetlands sustain humanity and nature through its multiple services like providing clean water, keeping us fed, supporting our economy, providing nature at home, and keeping us safe from floods and storm. The theme is also an essential summary of the issue on implementing appropriate programs backed by hard science to ensure the conservation of our wetlands. ERDB has always been active in pursuing research to support policies for the protection and conservation of our natural resources. Recently, ERDB has been tapped to study coastal wetlands and areas adjacent to the Las Piñas Parañaque Wetland Park, formerly known as the Las Piñas Parañaque Critical Habitat and Ecotourism Area. The goal of the study is to protect the integrity of the wetland, which provide various ecosystem services to include provisioning, regulating, aesthetic and cultural and support services. No study of this nature has been conducted yet on the urban protected areas but ERDB. Together with various agencies, is in the forefront of this project in collecting science-based information to determine the extent and impact of various infrastructure development projects. With this, I hope that other institutions in the academe and different sectors can embark on other equally crucial projects to address the current challenges and issues related to conservation and protection of our wetlands. I hope that the society will continue to be instrumental in promoting linkages and disseminating relevant information on wetlands as it affects the well-being of various life forms from land, water, and air. Rest assured that the DNR, especially ERDB, will fully support and welcome collaboration initiatives in the future for this purpose. Again, good morning to all. Thank you.
In the Philippines, the National Administrative Authority for the Ramsar Convention is the Biodiversity Management Bureau of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. As I mentioned earlier, it spearheaded the kickoff event for this year's celebration of World Wetlands Day 2021. Joining us today to also lend support to this event and to underscore further the inextricable link between water, wetlands, and life is the Assistant Director and currently the OIC of the Office of the Director of the Biodiversity Management Bureau, Director Amelita DJ Ortiz. Director Ortiz has been with DENR in various senior and executive level capacities, The more recent ones being the Assistant Regional Director for Management Services in DENR, Region 3, and in the NCR, and also Staff Director in the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Strategic Partnership, Legislative Affairs, and Human Resources of the DENR. Ladies and gentlemen, Director Amelita DJ Ortiz.
Distinguished guests, colleagues, friends, and partners in wetlands conservation, good morning. As the country emerges from the coronavirus crisis, the role of nature-based solutions in creating a pandemic-resilient future has gained increasing attention. COVID-19 has made it painfully clear how intimately interconnected human health is with the health of our planet. Anchored on this premise is this year's celebration of World Wetlands Day, which shines light on the invaluable and inseparable yet poorly understood coexistence between wetlands, water, and life. We bring to the fore how these waterlogged ecosystems determine human health and well-being, highlighting the role they play in the quantity and quality of fresh water on our planet. Where there is water, there is life. Only 2.5% of water is fresh water, and less than 1% of fresh water is usable, and wetlands provide most of it. The Philippines is a country blessed with abundant and diverse wetlands, yet they have been widely misunderstood and paid very little attention to. Its importance and functions, albeit numerous and surpassing other types of ecosystems, remain largely unknown and unappreciated to the point of being regarded as wastelands, drained and converted into other land uses. For this very reason, we make every World Wetlands Day celebration count, helping raise global awareness about the value of wetlands as arguably the most valuable and productive ecosystems in the world. Today, on behalf of the DNR Biodiversity Management Bureau, it is my honor to be part of this another meaningful endeavor set out by the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands, who has been among our greatest wetland conservation allies. We hope that our strengthened partnership will continue to gather momentum as we harmonize our efforts towards the common goal of protecting and conserving our wetlands. 4 days ago, on February 2, we too launched our year-long campaign for the conservation of our country's wetlands, caves, and karst ecosystems through a triple celebration. Commemorating World Wetlands Day and National Wetlands Day 2021, the 50th anniversary of the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands, and the International Year of Caves and Karst. Partners and stakeholders from both government and non-government sectors expressed strong support for the Bureau's programs and activities for the year. Similarly, we would like to extend the same support to the Society as they kick off their year-long activities. Together, let us make 2021 a year in which wetlands receive greater attention and stronger action needed to sustain people, ecosystems, and biodiversity. We are very confident and hopeful that with the recent filing of the Senate Bill number 2036, establishing a national wetland policy, providing mechanism for its institutionalization, and appropriating funds thereof, also known as the National Wetlands Conservation Act, championed by Senator Cynthia Villar, chairperson of the Senate Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, as well as its counterpart House Bill number 3640, jointly filed by Representative Mujib S. Hataman of Basilan and Representative Amihilda J. Sangkopan of Anak Mindanao Party List in August 2019. All our shared efforts, including awareness-raising events like this, will sustain our proactive stance, maximize our reach, and impact at all scales and gain us more allies to enable the immediate passage of this wetland bill into law. This long-awaited national legislation seeks to consolidate the various wetland-related legal provisions dispersed in several laws and provide the needed guidance for the key national government agencies, as well as the local government units, in adjusting their sectoral or local policies, plans, and programs to be consistent with the conservation and wise use of wetlands. The approval of this bill will ensure the protection, conservation, and wise use of all wetlands, critical for our daily survival, from the food we eat to the water we drink, the protection we get against flood and storm, and the livelihoods we gain, all contributing to the well-being of the present and future generations of Filipinos. As the Philippines builds back better, let us continue to raise our voices for wetlands at the policy-making level down to the grassroots and rebuild the backbone of our country with nature-based solutions. Muli, maraming salamat at isang makakalikasang umaga po sa ating lahat.
Thank you, Director Ortiz, for the unwavering support of BNB to the society and, of course, to the cause of wetland conservation. So we now move to the introduction of our keynote speaker, who is a very staunch supporter of wetland conservation and also the best friend of the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands. Cynthia Aguilar Villar earned her degree in Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from the University of the Philippines, which recognized her as the 27 UPAA Most Distinguished Alumna. She completed her master's in business administration at the New York University. She practiced as a financial analyst and college professor until she married former House Speaker and Senate President Manny Villar. She supported her husband in various entrepreneurial ventures that eventually led to making Vistaland the biggest home builder in the Philippines. She also managed a private development bank from 1989 to 1998. In 2001, Cynthia Villar won as representative of Las Piñas, where she completed 3 terms or 9 years of service until 2010. She was chairman of Committee on Higher and Technical Education during the 13th and 14th Congress. She was president of the Lady Legislators during the 12th, 13th, and 14th Congress, initiating legislation benefiting women, children, and family. Cynthia Villar founded and chaired the Villar Foundation, now known as the Villar Social Institute for Poverty Alleviation and Governance, or Villar-CIPAG. Its various programs are assistance to OFWs, including the yearly OFW and Family Summit, environmental protection, including the establishment of the Las Piñas Parañaque Wetland Park, agricultural training in 4 farm schools located in Cavite, Bulacan, Iloilo, and Davao, and establishment of various livelihood projects in over 3,000 locations nationwide. In 2013 midterm elections, Cynthia Villar ran and won as senator. In the 2019 national elections, she also ran and won anew as senator. She was proclaimed as the #1 senator, having garnered a total of over 25 million votes, which is unprecedented for a senatorial post in the country. She chairs the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Food and the Senate Committee on Environment and Natural Resources since 2013, up to now. Besides pursuing and enacting relevant laws, she also led numerous initiatives to empower farmers, among which is the establishment of TESDA-accredited farm schools, which have so far reached over 2,367 all over the country. Senator Villar was conferred the rank of Honorary Auxiliary Commodore by the Philippine Coast Guard, auxiliary for her commitment to environmental protection. She is also an honorary member of the Philippine Horticultural Society and other social civic groups. Amidst all her achievements and awards, She successfully raised 3 well-educated children. Paulo is the CEO of publicly listed Vistaland. Mark is the Secretary of the Department of Public Works and Highways. I am the #1 fan of Secretary Mark. And Camille is currently the representative of the Lone District of Las Piñas. Camille is also the Vice Chairman of All Home, President of All Value, and Director of Star Malls, Vista Malls. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce the Honorable Cynthia Aguilar Villar.
Thank you, Ami. Good morning. I'm happy to be with you, and I wish to acknowledge the following who are with us today. Architect Ulep, the President of the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands, and of course, Ms. Ami, the Vice President and Executive Director. Architect Lecciones of also the Society, Mr. Christopher Ilagan, Chairperson of the Philippine Water Partnership, Dr. Adornado, Director of DNR, Ecosystems Research and Development Bureau, and OIC Director, Dr. Ortiz of the Biodiversity Management Bureau, Engineer Frankie Aleriano, Consultant of Maynilad, and our good partner in all our endeavors, Dr. Teresita Mondita Lim, Executive Director, Asian Center for Biodiversity, and a partner also. To all our participants, friends, guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much to the Society for Conservation of Philippine Wetlands for the invitation to be part of this virtual celebration of World Wetland Day, which, as we all know, is celebrated every second day of February. This year's celebration is special because it marks the 50th year since the adoption of the Convention of Wetlands on February 2, 1971 in the Iranian city of Ramsar, which created the Ramsar Convention. Second reason why this year's celebration is extra special is that the Philippines has another entry in the Ramsar list of wetlands. Sasmoan Pampanga Coastal Wetland is now a Ramsar site or wetland of international importance after it was declared by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources Biodiversity Management Bureau and the Ramsar Secretariat in Gland, Switzerland during the celebration of World Wetlands Day last Tuesday, February 2. It is the 8th Ramsar site in the country. We have 7 existing and it is the 8th. And the first in Central Luzon, covering more than 3,500 hectares of coastal waters and 5 barangays in Sasmoan town in Pampanga. I am particularly pleased about it because the Sasmoan Pampanga coastal wetland will also play a key role in our efforts in rehabilitating Manila Bay. The Sasmoan Bangkong Malapad Critical Habitat and Ecotourism Area in the wetland is part of the large and enclosed sea of Manila Bay. Like our own Las Piñas Parañaque Critical Habitat and Ecotourism Area in my home city of Las Piñas, it is vital component of Manila Bay too. Another reason why this year's World Wetlands Day is special is that I have filed a wetland conservation bill, Senate Bill number 2036, or the National Wetlands Conservation Act, which will provide more protection for wetlands. If you think about it, there is no single Philippine legislation that deals specifically on wetlands. Wetland protection may have been included in a number of environmental laws, pero walang specific na batas intended solely for wetland protection. Given the wetlands' importance, there is a need for a concise policy statement on wetlands to be adopted on the national level. Due to our country's archipelagic nature, we have numerous wetlands. The 2016 Atlas of Philippine Inland Wetlands and Classified Caves put the number at 314 inland wetlands and 2,487 river system. Out of these, 314 wetlands are 221 lakes, 12 marshes and swamps, 9 peatlands, 39 water storage, and 31 ponds. Especially now na nadagdagan pa ang Ramsar Wetland of international importance dito sa ating bansa, Senate Bill 2036 seeks to guide all concerned national government agencies and local government units in adjusting their sectorial or local policies, plans, and programs to be consistent with the wetland conservation and wise use. Some LGUs had made efforts to protect and conserve the wetlands in their areas, but the effort should be on a national scale and all-encompassing to cover all the wetlands, even those not in the Ramsar list and lesser-known ones. It will also enhance current efforts to raise awareness on the importance of wetlands as the cradle of biodiversity. The role of wetlands cannot be taken for granted, but instead promoted. And the approval of my proposed bill will ensure the protection, conservation, and wise use of all wetlands for the present and future generations of Filipinos. As signatory to the Ramsar Convention, we have a responsibility to help in wetland conservation and wise use, which is at the core of the Convention's philosophy. When contracting parties accede to the Convention, they commit to work towards the wise use of all the wetlands and water resources in their territory through national plans, policies, and legislation, management actions, and public education. The Ramsar Convention defines wise use of wetland as the maintenance of their ecological character achieved through implementation of ecosystem approaches within the context of sustainable development. Wise use can thus be seen as the conservation and sustainable use of wetlands and all the services they provide for the benefit of the people and nature. Wetlands provide a wide range of ecosystem services that is vital for human survival, foremost of which are food and water. In fact, the theme of the celebration this year is Wetlands and Water. And this event of the Society for Conservation of Wetlands is anchored on the theme together with the Philippine Water Partnership. Water for people, ecosystems, and biodiversity. Wetlands, water, and life are inseparable. They are interlinked and support the existence and sustainability of each other. Ayon mismo sa World Economic Forum, ang water crisis katulad ng scarcity, pagbaha at polusyon ang ilan sa matinding hamon sa global economy. Thus, it is a must for us to protect our wetlands, waterways, and bodies of water to ensure that they are safe, clean, and healthy for our own safety, health, and survival. Alam naman natin lahat na ang mabilis na paglaki ng populasyon sa buong mundo, kasama na dito sa ating bansa, ang isa sa mga magpapalala at magpapalala sa ating water crisis. We must always bear in mind that water is not an infinite resource and it is getting scarce. Kaya dapat nating ensure na ang mga sources nito ay hindi mawawala ng supply. Lalo pa sa isang agricultural country na katulad ng ating bansa, which rely heavily on water. There are over 663 million people around the world na walang safe water supply na accessible sa kanila or close to where they live. Besides providing critical water and food supplies, including rice and fish, fresh water, fiber, and fuel. Wetlands also serve as the habitat of threatened species of Philippine flora and fauna and harbors biodiversity that is vital in sustaining life and sustainable development. Wetlands also supply and regulate water and act as natural safeguards against disaster, thus protecting vulnerable communities from devastating effects of floods, drought, and storm surges. Healthy and well-managed wetlands increase resilience to climate change and extreme weather events. We must remember na pag may typhoon surge, yung mga merong wetland na merong protection, sila yung hindi nadadamage. Katulad ng nangyari sa Leyte province. As most of you know, those are the same points I raised when I fought and saved the Las Piñas Parañaque Critical Habitat and Ecotourism Area and Manila Bay from reclamation. What we have done at the Las Piñas Parañaque Critical Habitat is a good working example of how biodiversity protection and conservation of landscapes and seascapes can help communities such as fisher folks who get their daily sustenance and livelihood from our wetland dahil doon ipinapanganak yung lahat ng mga fishes sa Manila Bay and the nearby barangay which are protected from threat of massive flooding. Sabi po ng Department of Public Works and Highway during the last administration, kung hindi namin ipipreserve yung aming wetland with our mangrove forest, then baka bahain kami ng 8 meters sa Las Piñas City during storm. La Papachea is now an ecotourism destination, now called the Las Piñas Parañaque Wetland Park. It is in partnership with various individuals and organizations, most of which are part of this event. I envision it to be a wetland center, which will serve as a venue to educate the general public on the value of wetlands in the environment and people's lives. Nagtayo po kami doon ng wetland center at pwede po doon mag-aral ang mga bata para makita nila ang importansya ng wetland. And at the same time, we have built a museum where we will feature the 8 wetlands of international importance by Ramsar. Alam nyo, mahirap puntahan yung ibang wetlands na nasa Ramsar list, especially the Agusan Marsh. Napakalayo po at mahirap puntahan. Kaya, and the Tubataha Reef. Kaya, gagawa na lang tayo ng film at ipapalabas natin yon sa ating wetland center sa Las Piñas Parañaque Wetland Park para lahat ng mga bata na gustong makita sila, makikita nila on film. We need to continue informing and rallying the people to protect wetlands because not all wetlands are protected and preserved like the Las Piñas Parañaque Wetland Park. Many wetlands, marine sanctuaries, tropical forests, and others are underprotected and lack resources to deal with various threats. Scientific study that show that 64% of the world's wetlands have disappeared since the 1900s. Compared against figures in the 1700s, an estimated 87% of wetlands have been lost. Inland wetlands are disappearing at a faster pace than coastal ones. As a result, access to fresh water is declining while flood control, carbon storage, and traditional wetland livelihoods all suffer. These are caused by human actions such as drainage, dredging, stream channelization, damming, poor agricultural practices, introduction of alien invasive species, and other extractive activities. Natural actions such as drought, severe storms, and climate change also serve as direct and indirect drivers of change for wetlands. These human and natural actions open results to siltation and sedimentation, release of toxic chemicals, pollution, and runoff, changing nutrient levels, subsidence, sea level rise, and loss of biodiversity. We should also take note that the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration starts this year, 2021, until 2030, which is also the deadline for the Sustainable Development Goals according to scientists, it's the last chance to prevent catastrophic climate change. The UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration calls for the protection and revival of ecosystems around the world for the benefit of people and nature as well as to achieve global goals. And wetlands are a major component of a healthy ecosystem for its many benefits to the people, such as source of livelihood, climate change solution, and biodiversity. Having said all of that, it is really about time, in fact, long overdue, to have a law that will establish and institutionalize a national wetland policy. Rest assured that I will work on the passage into law of the Wetland Conservation Bill I filed in the Senate with, of course, all your support. Let's hope that we can pass it on or before World Wetlands Day in 2022. Thank you very much. God bless and stay safe.
Thank you, Senator Villar, for that inspiring message and the urgent call to action. We are once again inspired and even energized by the fact that with the Senate bill that you recently sponsored, and of course the similar bill in the House, we now have high hopes that an overarching national policy on wetlands will soon be a reality. At this point, we would like to show a very short AVP on wetlands and its importance, and of course, on the Ramsar Convention.
When rain falls is part of a cycle that's essential to all life on Earth. Every phase of this cycle plays a role in keeping the planet beautiful and vibrant. Water makes its way back into the atmosphere via many different routes. Through rivers, from the leaves of plants, and even through the human body. And what keeps all these processes turning are wetlands. There are many types of wetland. Inland wetlands, coastal wetlands, and human-made wetlands. Wetlands are extremely important for humans. They are hugely diverse ecosystems, providing natural riches like food, timber, and medicines. Nearly 3 billion people are dependent on groundwater for drinking, and agriculture relies on wetland freshwater for irrigation. Wetlands are nature's way of purifying water. They also play a hugely important role in the regulation of climate change by storing carbon. Coral reefs, mangroves, tidal flats and other coastal wetlands provide a buffer between the land and the sea, preventing flooding and erosion. Despite all of these benefits, wetlands are often thought to be of low value, and half of the world's wetlands have already been destroyed. The consequences of further destruction are flooding, drought, disease and pollution, and climate change. And ultimately mass starvation and unprecedented species loss. But there is hope. The Ramsar Convention protects wetlands by helping people work together to manage these most precious of resources. Work is focused on wise use of water, building a network of wetlands of international importance, and international cooperation. From local projects to global policy making, Ramsar aims to get the world acting as one before it's too late. We all depend on water. Each of us can make a difference. We all have a responsibility in protecting wetlands.
So we're back again. We now proceed to the two presentations from our invited experts to elaborate on water, wetlands, and life. Our first speaker was formerly Senior Assistant Vice President for Corporate Quality, Environment, Safety and Health, Maynilad Water Service, and currently Senior Technical Consultant and member of the top management team. He is also a professorial lecturer at the University of the Philippines College of Engineering. To give us a presentation on water for people, may I call on Engineer Francisco Arellano.
Magandang umaga sa inyo lahat. Happy Golden Jubilee for the wetlands. And I will be talking on water and wetlands. Okay. As has been discussed by the previous speaker, we all thought that the world waters is an infinite resource, but actually we only have around 332 cubic miles of water stored for us here, and while it occupies 70% of the land mass, only 98% is salt water, and then the rest would be 2% is fresh water. But 2%, only 1% is surface water like rivers and streams. Now, the demand for water, food, and energy, we call it a nexus because they are interconnected. By 2050, there will be 9.2 billion people, resulting in 70% increase in demand for food, 40% increase in the demand for energy, and by 2030, we will be confronted by a water supply shortage of about 40%. Being said, these shortages could lead to social and political instability, geopolitical conflict, and irreparable damages to the environment. They said that the next war will be a war against a war on water use. We normally use 2.5 quarts of water every day to stay alive. We make 70 times, turn our faucet 70 times a day. But the rest of the water is used for bathroom, flushing, and kitchen, for the kitchen. But only very few amount is used for drinking water. And yet the whole water that is being distributed to you is the water supply is for drinking purposes. And flushing of water would be 12 to 28 liters of water a day. And I would like to present this is that brushing teeth, your teeth 2 minutes with running water consumes 24 liters of water. And 60% of the human body is made up of water. As we can say that the water is our first defense against COVID, the COVID pandemic that we're having right now. And water is needed by the body for its to regulate the temperature, for the activity of our internal organs, for digestion, and also for our blood pressure. Water is equivalent to national security because water is there is water shortage, as Senator Villar said. The economy will be highly compromised. As you could see, that water is essential to life, and also for sanitation, and also to prevent diseases. But it could also be the avenue for some diseases. That's why we have also waterborne diseases. Now, when there are possible effects or severe disruption of water, there will be massive scramble for water. There will be breakdown of law and order. I've seen this whenever there is a water shortage. You could see that some of our water tankers are being stopped by the people, are being hijacked, and there will be starvation, and also there will be the spread of diseases. This happened in Chennai, I think 2 years ago, in India, when there was actually a civil war conflict because of the drought in Chennai. But water in Metro, but you could see that there are also challenges in water like typhoons. I'd like to show this picture because this is one that happened to Typhoon Ulysses. You could see the quality of water because of the deforestation that happened in our watershed. Right now, the MWSS, which is the supplier of water for Metro Manila, has given the concession to Manila, to the western side, to operate the water system. Not only the water system, but also the sewerage system. Then we have the East Zone, which is also being operated by the Ayala Group. And then there is a recent player, which is the Bulacan Bulk Water, which serves the Bulacan area. Like in Manila, we also serve Cavite, and Manila Water will also be serving the whole province of Rizal. Right now, we have 16 million people being served by water. The coverage is already 94%. This is Metro Manila. Sewer connection is very low, 17%. And sanitation coverage is 20%. And non-revenue water, this is water which is being lost or which has been due to leaks and due to also water theft, around 25.5%. Now you can see that this is the water supply and demand for Metro Manila. And you will see here that there will be new dams which will be constructed, the Kaliwa Dam, the Wawa Dam, the Sierra Madre water, also the Bayabasan and the Canon water. And this will be the road map up to 2040. And right now, we're getting our water from deep wells, from Angat, and also from Laguna Lake. You could see that the main source of water is the Angat Umiray, which we share together with the NIA for irrigation, which is the second use of water. The first use of water is for power generation. And then we split the 4,000 mLD of water between the Manila water and Maynilad. Of these, 1,600 megaliters per day goes to the La Mesa Dam in the case of Manila water, and then to their treatment plant. In the case of Maynilad, it goes directly, the 2,400 allocation goes directly to our two treatment plants, La Mesa 1 and La Mesa 2. And then we also have our two treatment plants in Laguna Lake, around 200 megaliters per day. And then the Manila water would have around 150 megaliters per day of water in Cardona. There is a reliance on Angat Dam. You could see that 97% of the water supplied in Metro Manila comes from Angat Dam, only 2% from Laguna Lake, and 1% from Deep Well. This is unacceptable because because of the possible many risks being faced by Angat Dam as a single source. As a result of it's very dependable on the climatic conditions as well as some geological movements. That's why we're trying to come up with different water sources. Again, I would like to introduce Maynilad, which is the west zone, composed of 17 cities and also 5 cities also in Cavite. We produce around 2,650 million liters of potable water from our 4 treatment plants, 7,000 kilometers of pipe networks. We have a 5-point plan for water supply for Metro Manila, for our service area. We push for the higher production of our treatment plants in Laguna Lake. We're trying to optimize our treatment plant from Putatan, that is in Laguna Lake, as well as we're trying to rehabilitate our treatment plants in La Mesa, which is La Mesa 1 and La Mesa 2. And we are trying to reduce our non-revenue water, which has been, which involves the replacement of old pipes, repair of leaks, and among others, that will give us 94 megaliters of I think we've achieved this. And we are reactivating our deep wells to give us around 52 megaliters per day. And we're also deploying 4 mobile treatment plants in Cavite, where we could use the old Nia dams, which are no longer being used, because most of the areas to be supplied have been turned into subdivisions. That's why we're trying to use these Nia dams and convert them to potable water of around 20 megaliters per day. This is our facilities, the Mesa Treatment Plant 1 and 2, which treats around 2,400 megaliters per day of water. And we have already spent 7.85 billion capital expenditures for our rehabilitation of the Mesa treatment plants. All of us, to ensure that we have the quality of our service, all our operations are by Maynilad is already, we have a business continuity management system. As you may know that the water industry is a mission critical enterprise, meaning to say that of all the utilities, it is the one which should be restored immediately whenever there is a calamity or there is a natural or man-made calamity. All of our facilities are ISO certified, quality 9,000, environment 14,000, and we have the OSHA's 1800 as well as our energy management system, our IT, and our sustainability report, and our carbon footprints. They are all ISO certified and verified. We also invest in our people, but because modern flowcharts and structures, we have to count on our passionate people. You could see that even in this pandemic, our people are working. It has not stopped since the start of the lockdown in March. We were all of our construction are kept moving on despite the pandemic. Now, as you can see that we have we call it wetlands. I come from Cavite City, and I remember that this wetlands or this swamp is the playground of my youth. And as you can see that we have a lot of swamps there. It's home adapted to certain, as you could see, this forest swamp. And they were already, most of them have been, it's either been cut. As I said, in Cavite, we call them charco. Why it's called charco? Because they cut the trees and make it into charcoal. That's why we call them charco or dalitan, what else, or Bakawan area. By the way, the La Mesa Dam was previously marshland before in the 1920s. This has been emphasized by all the speakers, but most of all, it is used to regulate the cycling of nutrients as well as for our carbon stocks. Heavy metals, trace metals, and nutrients and organic matters can be removed by this phytoremediation, and one of our treatment plants, which will be constructed in Cavite City, will be using phytoremediation process. Of course, we also have the constructed wetlands. We see it all in Singapore. Instead of reclaiming their lands, some areas will be surrounded by swamps, and that is where they discharge the treated water from the treatment plant. And later on, they draw from there and put up their treatment plant. I envision this to be done here also in Metro Manila, because most of the water which we take in, 80% of them ended as wastewater, and we are treating them. And right now, there is no demand for reclaimed or reused water. Perhaps we have to do a constructed wetland so that we could use again this water which is being produced from our wastewater treatment plants. We have our Plant for Life program. We started this in 2007. I think we reforested already around more than 500,000 in Ipo Dam. So we do this deforestation, and we are still doing another project, which is the mangrove tree planting program. We call them the Save the Bacoor, Kanyakaw, Manila Bay program, which is part of our Plan for Life. So we had Bakawan planting in Cavite City, Nabeleta, Rosario, Kawit, and Bacoor. Unfortunately, the one in Bacoor, in Rosario, I mean, we're not successful in this rehabilitation of the Rosario Bacaor areas. Although this was done together with our partners, the local government, Penro, NGOs charged, even the military joined us. And we all know this, it regulates, protects the coastline from storm surges. That's why Cavite City is protected, because it has also it has marshlands, swamps, reduction of beach and soil erosion, stabilization and trapping of sediments, and the maintenance of the water quality. Again, it also provides subsistence to commercial fishes, and it supports storage and recycling of nutrients. Here is our Bakawan Mangrove project. So we decided to give I think this is a community. They grow the propagules. We gave them the seed money, and then we buy the propagules from them. And as you could say, buwis buhay ang pagtatanim ng mga bakawan. It's a life-threatening. That's so because it's so slippery, and you don't know how the depth that you would be going into. And you could see that this has fast growth, high survival rate in Nabeleta. This was a cycling plant before. And you could see here some of the projects that we have done. And this is what's the problem right now is that because the mangrove plantation was so successful, it has been encroaching these houses on stilts are now complaining because of the, it's now the Bakawan which is encroaching on these houses. And aside from that, we decided why not try to find out what would be the total carbon sequestration of mangroves to be able to offset our carbon footprint. Okay, so we have 8.6 hectares of total mangrove planted, 87,000 estimated propagules planted. And our carbon footprint that was in I think this is in 2014. Now it's already, it used to be 0.0346 grams per liter of carbon dioxide. Now I think it's already 0.08 because of the treatments, a number of treatment plants which have been constructed since 2014. This is ISO verified. And we found out that from our Bakawan program, there was 21,287.6 tons of carbon stocked or captured instead of being released to the atmosphere. 4,247 tons of carbon dioxide is sequestered or absorbed from the atmosphere as a result of the mangrove planted that we have, and this could offset our carbon footprint. And as a result of that, as I said, I come from Cavite City. I never realized that these mud crabs and streams came back to that area. It was only when the Region 4 Penro told me that about this thing. So I decided to see for myself when I went back to Cavite City and found there are a lot of vendors selling crabs and shrimp as a result of the mangroves that we have planted. Of course, despite what we've been preparing for from our business continuity, we also don't know what would happen. We need to be prepared, as I said. And anything can happen. As a result, even all the what do you call this? All the externalities are considered in our business program. And with that, I say thank you and happy Wetlands Day. Marami pong salamat.
Thank you, Frankie, for a very comprehensive presentation. And it's really very informative, and it's good to know that Maynilad has a lot of initiatives to conserve and restore wetlands. In fact, if you would like to join us in doing the constructed wetlands, we'll be very happy to partner with you. Right now, the society has constructed wetland at the Green Village in Calauan. So you might want to check that out. Okay, so we move on. We move on to the next speaker. Before I do that, I would just like to remind everyone that you can write your questions in the chat box or in the FB page. Okay. Our next speaker is the current Executive Director of the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, or ACB, where she leads the center in facilitating regional cooperation and coordination on biodiversity conservation for it to be sustainably managed and used, and equitably shared for the well-being of people. Some of her notable international roles in the conservation sector were as the chair of the Convention on Biological Diversity, subsidiary body on scientific, technical, and technological advice. I'm more used to just calling it as the substa. Okay, from 2017 to 2018, chair of the 15th and 18th meeting of the ASEAN Working Group meeting on Coastal and Marine Environment in 2014 and 2017, chairperson of the 4th ASEAN Experts Group on the Convention of International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Flora and Fauna, popularly known as CITES. That is in the meeting in 2006. and chairperson of the 16th ASEAN Working Group on Nature Conservation and Biodiversity, or the AWGNCB, also in 2006. Her core competencies and extensive experience and expertise are in local, regional, and international governance, management, policy development, implementation and innovation, partnership building, science and policy linkages, and advocacy in the fields of biodiversity and wildlife protection. Also, a friend of the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands, the SCPW is honored to have her with us today, Dr. Teresa Mondita Eslim.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Ami. Thank you very much for inviting me and the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity to join you in this celebration of the Wetlands Day. Of course, I was also pleased to see my former boss, Dr. Olep, Architect Olep, earlier. And of course, I'm very elated to hear about the progress of the Senate bill on wetlands that Senator Cynthia Villar spoke about earlier. And of course, she's one of our champions on wetland biodiversity in the Senate. So I'm glad that the legislative measure is already on its way, and the ACB will be ready to support any advocacies that are needed for such a bill. Okay, can you see my slide? Because I can't. Okay, can we, is it on slide presentation mode? Okay. All right. So I was asked to talk about water for ecosystems and biodiversity. Well, let me start by talking about the situation at the moment. I think earlier it was also touched on by previous speakers, as well as Engineer Aureliano, about there's a looming global water crisis. Senator Villar also mentioned about it, but it's because of the complex intersection of environmental issues and the worsening climate scenario. In fact, in November of 2020, the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific and the ASEAN published a report about drought in the Southeast Asian region. You can see on the screen where drought is being felt in some of the countries in Southeast Asia. According to the report, droughts experienced by the region from 2015 to 2020 will be more severe, are already more severe than any drought recorded in the past 2 decades. And this might be occurring it will be recurring once every 5 years on the average. Okay. But but the earth is made up of 71% water. You've seen, next slide, please. You've seen photos of the earth, satellite photos of the earth, and photos of the earth from the moon, and really you can see how much of the earth is water, and and as I mentioned, it's estimated that 71% of the earth is water, but only 2.5% is fresh water, and less than 1% is usable. This is according to the Ramsar Convention, which is mentioned earlier. And the main source of the fresh water was already mentioned is the star of today, our wetland ecosystems. In the ASEAN region, inland waters and wetlands occupy close to 2 million square kilometers and comprise around 60% and 42% of the world's tropical peatlands and mangrove forests, respectively. So this is the data that we have in the ASEAN region. Again, we have lots of water, but still, why are we having a global crisis? Earlier, engineer mentioned about the importance of water to humans, and I was also I'm requested to also expound on the importance of water to ecosystems and species. Senator Villar mentioned that we should start treating water as a finite source, shared among humans and animals and plant species. So according to the Ramsar Convention, which was also mentioned earlier, 1 billion people depend on wetlands for livelihoods, and there are around 40% of the world's species of flora and fauna are living and breeding in this ecosystem. And so these species depend on the on water for their habitat. Inland waters support several components of aquatic biodiversity. We have reptiles, amphibians, fish, mollusks, worms, insects, and other aquatic, not only vertebrates, but invertebrates as well as a variety of water plants. There are rare and endemic freshwater fauna like the Mekong giant catfish or the Pangasianodon gigas, which is found only in the Mekong River, and the naturally found in the Mekong River, and the critically endangered half-beak fish in Lake Tondano, the largest lake in North Sulawesi, Indonesia. These are found, they inhabit the waters of the freshwater ecosystems in wetland areas in ASEAN. Inland water is also needed for feeding and as watering areas for migratory birds. The journey from the east, along the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership in the ASEAN, no? So the birds migrate from the northernmost part of the globe, and then during the winter season they come to the Philippines and to some member countries in Southeast Asia to feed and to rest, to take their summer vacation. So it's very important that so water is important for them for survival during their life cycle. So so these are the importance of why we need water for species, and of course for wetlands. Without water, the wetland cannot exist. So the ecosystems, the species, they all depend on water. But what I need to emphasize is the interconnection at play in healthy wetland ecosystems. It's the proper functioning of the wetlands that provides a sustainable source of water. So I explained why water is important for wetlands and species, for ecosystems and biodiversity, but it's also the biodiversity and the healthy functioning of the wetland that will enable us to have a sustainable supply water, a good supply of water. And the proper functioning, rely on the diversity of species and vegetation that exist in our wetland ecosystem. It is not just the physical value, it's not just the physical function, but you need, when you protect wetlands, you also need to take into account the biodiversity, the biological resources that are inhabiting the wetland areas. And sometimes, these are, you take this for granted because you cannot see them. Unlike the birds, you have organisms, you have microbes that inhabit the wetlands, that inhabit the bottoms of the wetlands that cannot be seen by the human eye. And these are all part of the functioning of a healthy wetland. Okay, so the associated species, the protection of associated species is important for I already mentioned how important the wetlands are, but it's also important that we recognize that the associated species are also important for wetlands to function well, and therefore are nature solutions to the global water crisis. In fact, in a publication by UNESCO, they recognize the value of a functioning wetland in the water cycle. So I will no longer quote that, but UNESCO, even UNESCO recognized this. The unique vegetation and organisms that are living in and around the ecosystems have crucial roles that help wetlands serve many functions and values. One of which is, of course, providing clean and safe water for various purposes. There are a lot of functions that were already mentioned earlier by the engineer of Maynilad, Engineer Arellano. And of course, I agree with him that these are, he mentioned food security. There's also absorption of excess nutrients and filtering of pollutants. So wetlands serve as natural filtration systems. Singapore, for example, use floating islands to improve the quality of their urban catchments. I believe the engineer also mentioned some examples in Singapore. But of course, for me, it's good to emphasize that in building these wetlands, they consider the function of aquatic plants, such as narrow-leaved cattails, umbrella plant, and aquatic canna. And without these plants, the wetlands will not be a functioning wetland. So in the Philippines, also there are recent studies. ERDB is one of our government partners. This was mentioned by Ami earlier. Of course, I was happy to hear from Director Henry Adornado as well. So according to ERDB, there also, we have, the Philippines has unique vegetation like bamboos, the giant bamboo, the bayog, the kawayan tinit. All of these can help in the uptake of heavy metals that improve the water quality of the rivers in the country. There are also bivalves, invertebrates like freshwater bivalves that have been studied for so many years that can help to naturally remove pollutants in the water. So in right quantities, they can help remove contaminants in water bodies that are receiving high inputs of wastewater. So these organisms all work together to keep the wetlands to keep the integrity of the wetlands and to keep the wetland functioning the way we expect it to function. Wetland act as natural reservoirs in managing, if managed properly. We already, it was mentioned how wetlands are natural reservoir. They absorb water during the rain. They trap the water during the rainy season, and then they help also recharge groundwater. But only if these wetlands have the lush vegetation, the native plants that allow them to do this. So it's important to recognize that even the species that we cannot, of course, bamboo, they are easily visible, but the ones that exist at the bottom, these are sometimes taken for granted. And the various species of grasses that thrive and the other vegetation that thrive around the wetland areas, around lakes, they serve a special function. So it's important that we protect these native species and the other unique species of animals, even microbes that contribute to the functioning of the wetlands. And of course, if we keep the biodiversity of the wetlands intact, the wetland can continue to provide the services that I have mentioned. As a reservoir, as a as a filtration system for food security, for agriculture, fish, of course. If you protect wetlands, and then recognize the variety of fish that survive in wetlands that keep the ecosystem alive and healthy. It's important to provide also the diversity of food that is needed on the table. Our wetlands have different types of different species of fish, have a diversity of fish, and we need to recognize that these are there is an important interaction in keeping that wetland healthy. If you only have one species of fish in a certain wetland, pretty soon if you have a monoculture of fish in one wetland, eventually that wetland will not be will become vulnerable and will not be as resilient as we want it to be, and it cannot provide the food security that we need. There are several examples of lakes, of freshwater ecosystems in the ASEAN that are being utilized by the communities around it, like Babe Lake in Vietnam, where ethnic groups like the Kin and the Hmong depend on the wetlands for fishing activities. There are also in Mindanao, energy and electricity is provided by Lake Lanao, the second largest lake in the Philippines and one of the 15 ancient lakes in the world. It provides electricity, but it's also a habitat of unique species of cyclids, the punshus, which is also we need to study whether these are still existing in Lake Lanao, and we need to be able to connect, to link the proper functioning of the lake and the existence of this very unique species of fish. In Myanmar, Inle Lake Wildlife Sanctuary serves as a watershed and water source for communities to provide electricity and also for domestic use. So the resources that are in wetland ecosystems are also not infinite. Although they provide these services, we need to make sure that these are not depleted as well. We cannot also abuse the resources that are being provided by the wetlands for it to be able to provide the services that we need it to provide. There's their filtration function will of course eventually be disappear, eventually be we will lose its filtration function if we also put too much pollution into the water, eventually these organisms will not be able to absorb as much, and eventually the functioning will be lost. And this is important to realize. We need to manage pollutants. We cannot abuse our wetlands as well. We need to take into account that there are anthropogenic pressures that cause these irreversible damages, and so we need, in protecting our wetlands, we need to um, also take that into account, and ensure that the integrity of our wetlands is also the answer to a sustainable water supply. So it is clear that a holistic and integrated approach is needed for for a sustainable water supply. If we want to supply, if we want our water to keep on, if you want our wetlands to keep on providing the services that we want, we need to secure them. Uh, we need to recognize that it's not just the physical functioning of the wetland, but the biological functioning that also makes it important, so that it will continue to provide us the services that it provides, including, of course, water. Nature-based solutions involving wetlands can also be, right now there are innovative approaches. There are technologies, there may be engineering solutions, but engineering solutions should always take into account the uh, the the biodiversity as well. And this is something that we can work on together uh, with those who are promoting certain technologies. We need, although they will not be as effective if biodiversity will not be taken into account, and they can also get their inspiration from nature as well. So these ongoing efforts, we need to protect our remaining wetlands, and to restore and to uh, and to restore protect and restore our wetlands. And when we do that, we need to protect the native species that are also a part of the ecosystem. And it is very timely that we need to think about this seriously as we enter the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. It should be part of our campaign um, to restore wetland ecosystem. And I think this would be an excellent opportunity to focus on the education and policy making, which, of course, Senator Villar has already started with her bill, and of course other activities that on the ground, the like the initiatives the uh, of the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands. There are efforts in the AMS. Thailand is implementing various sustainable agriculture and cultural management practices in the Mekong River. The Philippines, you've probably heard about the efforts, the joint efforts of the private sector and government in recovering degraded wetlands. And recognizing the significant wetlands along with other ecosystems. The ACB also has its efforts with the ASEAN member states. We continue to support select protected areas, wetlands in protected areas in terms of capacity development, livelihood development, and law enforcement through our ASEAN Heritage Parks program. Currently, there are around 821,000 hectares of wetlands within that are covered by ASEAN Heritage Parks. The AMS also, we work with the AMS to recognize the importance of protecting migratory species. As you know, they in the ASEAN Flyway Network, through our ASEAN Flyway Network initiative. It's a virtual network of flyway site managers and other key stakeholders. With the support of the government of Japan, the AFN conducted a water bird census and wetland assessments in 2019 to 2020. We recognized that the presence of migratory species of birds are also indicators of protected wetland, a healthy and a healthy wetland ecosystem, and the results, of course, intend to inform conservation actions in the region's inland waters. And at the ASEAN level, there are several policies that have already been guiding us. We've organized several webinars on preventing future pandemics and building climate resilience, and we see that biodiversity is really part of the equation. It was already mentioned earlier that in the time of in this time of pandemic, water is important for hand washing, for sanitation and hygiene, and the more that we need sustainable water supply. There's a regional framework now, the ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework, and its implementation plan, which already which already calls for the support to mainstreaming biodiversity across the water and agricultural sectors through a whole of community and integrated approach, taking into account the significant relationship between water security, public health, and well-being. Also, just last November, the leaders adopted the ASEAN Declaration on the Strengthening of Adaptation to Drought, which reiterated the need for regional cooperation in developing various innovations for climate change adaptation, including water resources, and likewise, they encourage collaboration among the ASEAN bodies to enhance the protection and preservation of water resources and biodiversity management. So this, at the highest level, they are already recognizing how biodiversity can contribute to water security. And it's also important, that this is already applied on the ground. We are taking off from this guidance from the leaders, and this is the support that we are providing across the ASEAN member states. So in closing, let me reiterate that water, ecosystems, and biodiversity are all interlinked. As mentioned, I agree with everyone who spoke about this earlier. It underpins economic growth, human development, and we should work together to be able to protect our wetlands for water, so that it can continue provide us with the water that we need for species, for ecosystems, and for human well-being. So we are grateful to SCPW, who have been working remarkably in raising public awareness, and we are glad to be part of this this webinar. We are honored, of course, to be able to have joined Senator Villar earlier when she gave her a very inspiring keynote speech. We hope that our young viewers can also be part of this global call to protect and restore our ecosystems, especially our wetlands. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Director Lim. And I think the message is very clear. She was saying that, very simply put, nature is also a user of water. So many species depend on water for survival, while these species in turn also help retain and clean water for people. So you can see the connection very clearly in her presentation. She also mentioned that she was hoping that this will reach out to the youth, and I'm very happy to inform everybody that our Eco Camp graduates are actually watching now. And the SCPW Eco Camp had been running for more than 16 years, and we have reached to more than 100 high schools and cascaded to more than 1,000 students already. So we are very assured that the youth are in fact very much engaged in all our initiatives. Okay, so we have time to entertain questions. I think the first question was, are you putting it online? With so many wetlands in the Philippines, what other areas should be included next as our Ramsar site? Is somebody here from BMB? Or else Director Mundita and I will answer that. Okay, so I guess we can, Reg is
Reg.
here. Okay.
Hello.
Reg ha, yung aming mga candidates.
Hi, yes po. Good morning po, Miss Ami.
Yeah.
Apo. So may marami naman po tayong mga currently may mga tina-target po tayo na sites na mga potential for Ramsar sites. So nakalinya po sa atin diyan yung ating Taal Volcano Protected Landscape. So isa po yan sa mga potential. Yung La Laguna Mars po sa Lopez, Quezon is kasama din po diyan. Then for the Visayas naman po, ang mga tina-target po natin diyang sites ay yung sa Iloilo Guimaras, yung Tacloban Island, mangrove forest, meron din po sa Capiz. And then yung isa po, hopefully by this year, is ma-workout po natin yung pong isang area po sa Zamboanga, yung Zamboanga Sibugay Coastal Wetlands po.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Reg, for that very specific answers. Pwede pa ba mag-nominate?
Yes, ma'am, pwede pa po.
Mga meron kami ni Director Mundita iniisip
po yung ating Del Carmen Mangrove sa Siargao po. Isa rin po yan sa mga potential sites na hopefully mapadeclare po natin as Ramsar site.
Okay. Okay, so thank you for that. I think we have the next question. One of the major problems in Laguna Lake is algal bloom, which may eventually cause fish kill. What intervention can you recommend to control or prevent the growth of algae? Who would like to respond to that? Maybe Frankie? Is Frankie here? Still here?
What's the question?
One of the major problems in Laguna Lake is algal bloom, which may eventually cause fish kill. What intervention can you recommend to control or prevent growth of algae?
Actually, this is one of the interventions which is done by DNR. The improvement on the nitrogen and phosphates levels, which have to be discharged, which is very, very strict. I think with that new Dow series of 2016, we have a very stringent nitrogen and phosphates in the wastewater for discharge, and if that is truly implemented properly, I think that would that will also control the algal bloom. As I said, this has been a problem in our treatment plant because the plant is being we have to put stop some of the operations because of the amount of algae which is going to our treatment plant.
Okay, so thank you, Frankie, for that. Actually, to reduce the amount of phosphate in the wastewater or even in our lakes, we also have to reach out to how agricultural practices are being done. Yeah. And the society actually has an ongoing project now, which won the Newton Prize in 2019. So we are working with De La Salle University, and the project is to recover fertilizers from domestic sludge. So maybe we can talk about that, Frankie, for Maynila.
No, I would also add that all our treatment plants now have nitrogen and phosphate removal process. It's a very expensive process.
Yeah.
But as you said, we have to recover the phosphates and nitrogen, and we can do that perhaps.
Yes. Okay, so another question from Miss Pearl. Hello, Miss Pearl. She's watching all the way from Dumaguete. Very informative presentations. Pwede you share with us how do we access? We will be posting, Tita Pearl, we will be posting the proceedings, including the presentations in our website. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, just to I'm Amy.
Yes.
Yeah, just to also support what you mentioned. Healthy wetlands have a natural filtering function, so
Yes.
they can absorb some amount of pollution because they are still rich biologically. But if if the pollutants exceed the capacity of the wetland to absorb all of this, including the the biological resources that they're in, then that's what happens. You have fish kill, you have algal blooms, and these are already symptoms of
degradation.
So there. Yeah, but I'm happy that there are now actions to reduce the pollution in some of our wetlands in Laguna Lake, but there are other lakes that are still in the early stages, and maybe through information campaign, we can still harness this benefit from some of our wetland areas in the Philippines.
Can I add
Yes.
something?
Sure.
The water treatment plant the water treatment plant in Lupa is in Putatan, and we were told that it was called Putatan because of the mangrove putat which grows in Putatan. And right now we can no longer find this putat, and that it's supposed to be endemic in the area. That's why they call it putatan. Just to emphasize what talked kanina, no? They exceeded the limits na kayang i-absorb ng the so-called mangrove. So we already don't have mangrove in Putatan.
Yeah. Dovetailing on what Director Mundita has said, the good thing is most of the wetlands that are degraded can still be restored. So, since this is the decade of ecosystem restoration, I think it's very high time that even communities, schools, the LGUs would work with us so that we will be able to identify which of these wetlands they would like to restore and how we can help. I'm sure Director Mundita, Maynilad, and all the other agencies and organizations would be very willing to help on how this ecosystem restoration can be brought about. Yeah. Okay, so we have a question here from Dr. Ayona. Where and how do we get funding for wetland conservation and management? That's a very... let's see. Maybe Director Monita would like to take make the first answer response to this. How do we get funding for?
During this decade for ecosystem restoration, there are opportunities for financial support everywhere, and as I mentioned, through our ASEAN Heritage Park program, we also support wetlands within and around the ASEAN Heritage Parks, and hopefully we will be able to support other ecosystems that are vital to the priorities of the ASEAN member states as well. So we just get guide. If it's a priority of the ASEAN member states, then it becomes a priority for support as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Frankie, how about Manila? Do you support organizations that might want to restore wetlands that will be helpful in water conservation?
If it could be, what you call this, if we could charge that to our tariff.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I think in the interest of time, we would like to thank our two experts here. And if you have additional questions, you can just post them on our FB, and we will still reach out to Director Mondita and to Frankie to answer your questions. They are actually very accessible, so we can always ask them. Thank you po. Thank you, Director Mondita and Frankie.
Thank you, Amy.
It was a very good session. Yeah. So now we proceed to since our most of our campers are already watching, I guess, because they are excited to join the competition that we will be announcing. So at this point, let me show you. We will be showing you a video on the competition that we are launching. It's called Stories About Water and Wetlands, or Wetlands and Water. And you will learn more about this when you see the video. And of course, we will be posting it in our FB and also in our website. I hope that you were able to at least look at the teaser. And if you would like more information, you can just go to our website. And it's very interesting because after we select the top 15, they will go into a boot camp where they will have a seminar on how to make videos, and this will be conducted by Mr. Jamison Kasakop of Fusion Works, which is our partner for this competition. Okay, so to wrap up our session for today, we would like to thank everybody who came and listened to us despite the technical glitches that we experienced. Our sincere gratitude and thank to the speakers and those who gave messages. Chris from the Philippine Water Partnership, and Director Henry Adornado from ERDB, also from Biodiversity Management Bureau, and of course from the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, from Maynilad, and of course our deepest gratitude to the Honorable Senator Cynthia Villar. On this note, I would like to thank also everybody who watched through Facebook, through the YouTube channel, and even through our website. We hope that our campers, we have more than 1,000 already. So I hope you guys would join the competition and share us stories about wetlands and water. I'm sure you have a lot. Especially, we'd like to give a special mention to the La Purisima Conception Academy of Mataas na Kahoy, Batangas. These are alumni from our eco camps. I think our campers also from Mabitak and Lumban are here, and all the other communities along Laguna de Bay. So on that note, I would like again to thank everyone. And we prepared actually a short video on the timetable for all the activities that we are going to conduct within the year in celebration of the World Wetlands Day and its 50th anniversary. So at this point, we would like to look at that video now. Thank you, everyone. And also, thank you, Roy. You are here. I saw you. Okay. So can we look at, we would like to invite everybody to look at the timetable or look at the events, because you might want to join us or partner with us. We are open to all who would like to partner with us in these events. Thank you on behalf of the society.
you.